not to be like the world and not to be like the great majority of American Christians, but to be like Jesus Christ. I don't know why you're clapping. I'm talking about you.
What's wrong with you people? I'm serious.
You can't say amen, you ought to say ouch.
Hello, humble bees. Welcome to Tulips and Honey.
Hi, Humblebees. Welcome back to Tulips and Honey. I am your host, Lauren Hereford, and today I am joined by not one, but two very special co-hosts. I'm really, really excited. We finally got them on so that they would stop bickering in the comment sections. We brought them here. They don't know it yet, but what we're going to be doing is mediation between the two of them because I hate to see them so divided. And by mediation, what I mean is that Kristin and I are going to gang up on Patrick and let him know that pineapple does not, in fact, belong on pizza because that's disgusting. But just kidding. Kristin, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here like always.
And Patrick, you got to say something so the screen will also go to you. Thank you for also joining me today.
You're welcome.
I'm leaving that little pause in, and I'm not going to edit it. Such a rebel without a cause. I am so glad to have you guys both on. We're going to talk about actually a really important topic, but we're going to do it in the fun way that we do everything on this channel because we have two really fun co-hosts, and we're gonna get through this without any like rap battles between the two of you guys. I expect absolutely no breakout sessions to see who is like, I don't know, a better dancer. What do people do whenever they just want to randomly compete? I have no idea, but none of that nonsense today. Okay, we're gonna stick to the topic because y'all are on Tulips and Honey, and this is a serious I can't say it's a serious program. And I'm a very serious porton, but I'm a very serious person. Yeah. You guys already know that. So this does go, by the way, each of you get a point for your contest to see who's going to be on the program the most. So you each get a point for both having joined us. This is going to be 2 episodes. We're going to cut it in half, and because it's going to go long, we already know that. We've accepted our fate that none of us are going to get any sleep. Because I'm just going to keep them here forever talking nonsense. So this is going to be a 2-part series, and it is a very important topic. We're actually going to be talking about the topic of the importance of church. So I'm really excited. Actually, what had happened was I sent a message to Patrick, and I was like, I have an idea. I want to have both you and Kristin on the program. But that's as far as my ideas go. So you're going to have to like think of some topics and stuff. And he did. He picked this topic, which is great because Kristin has already done so much work talking about ARC. And Patrick, you have a lot to bring to the table because you were raised, if everybody remembers your first interview where you gave us your testimony, you were raised Catholic. So you guys both have seen 2 different versions of what church is not supposed to be. And so it's going to bring a lot to the table showing what church is supposed to be and how important it is. So I'm really excited about all these topics. So,
well, I mean, you guys both like seriously have done just amazing episodes. I've really, really enjoyed listening to both of you guys talk about kind of the importance of kind of standing strong against systems that are hard to go against. And Kristin, your testimony against ARC, and when Lauren said that she wanted to do a co-host with both of us, I thought about how gracious you were when approaching your leaders to talk to them about the issues that you were having. And I remember thinking back to your episode and thinking, like, yes, that's exactly how you do it. You go open-minded as much as you can, but still remaining in your conviction. And then from there, I thought, well, we've talked about kind of the negative aspect to it. Maybe we can help people with kind of the positive aspect. And so Lauren, the last episode that I was on, I got an email right around the same time that like led perfectly into our discussion, and I actually got the same type of email. So it's very fortuitous, random chance in this chaotic universe of nothingness that leads us to a life
nonsense.
of nihilism.
I sent lots of money to Benny Hinn and prayed for this, and that's why it had happened. So obviously, so you got an email. Are we gonna read it? Because last time it was so perfect. It was kind of creepy.
Yeah, and I've been talking a lot about balance on a few people's different shows, and so I think this topic kind of bisects kind of what we have all 3 have been talking about recently. And so I've obviously removed some details so that this person can be as anonymous as possible. But I get these messages kind of on a regular basis. But I thought this one just really solidifies the point of what makes church important. So he said in an email to the ministry that I work for. I'm scared that I'm a devoured Christian and don't know how to reignite a fire for God in my heart. He said he read the Bible daily, but was missing the hunger for it he once had. He said that he prayed daily for the Holy Spirit to change him. Great, right? But that he didn't feel totally surrendered to Christ. He went on to say, "I'm so scared that I'm not going to be found approved and in the Lamb's Book of Life, and honestly, don't know what is wrong with me." And I was like, wow, he's not just a person that's sitting there waiting for the dart to be thrown at him. He's like, he's doing what we all should be doing in our spare time, which is going to the Word, prayer, wanting God to change his heart to the heart of Christ. And this isn't uncommon to what I've been seeing the past 2 years, especially. I've been talking with people who, are who claim to be Christian, and I don't have any reason to doubt them, so I take them at their word for it. But they are experiencing depression, suicidal tendencies, and feeling lost. So my question to him was this: Are you a member of a local Bible-believing church, and have you gone to your pastor and or elders about this? And I asked this question so many times throughout the week. I mean, this is I should just copy and paste. I should put it in my signature rather than my name, because I end up asking it more than I do anything else. But 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. And I saw this before. The lockdowns happen, and we decided that it's okay not to have church for a few people. But I think it's really hit home a lot more these days. And I talk about this balance, and I talked about it on Nate Burns' awesome podcast, Rooted in Revelation. Watch any other episode other than mine, and once you're done with it, go watch that as well. But he came back and he said no, and I was like, you're on the right track. You're there. We're not made to be alone. We're made to be in fellowship with other believers. We have a relationship now with God. We went from haters to God to being adopted as sons and daughters. And sons and daughters means that we're a family, and we have to learn to like and love each other in a different way than what we're used to. And so church is that opportunity to do so many different things. And so I thought maybe that's something that we could kind of talk about and bring a positive aspect. And I can just point to this episode for linking, instead of always getting on people of just go to church. Come on now.
Yes, and that seems to be a consistent thing that we're seeing right now. Is a lot of people that were out of it for 2 years, they're now having a hard time getting back in it. But look, we're as podcasters naturally introverted, right? I've yet to talk to a podcaster that's like, I love being with people. It's why we podcast, because this is how we communicate with you guys without actually having to be in front of you. But even in that very introverted state, there's a desire of the born again believer's heart that wants to fellowship with other believers in a church setting where I want to go and I want to see the word rightly proclaimed. And I want to see everybody with their notebooks, and they're taking notes and they're getting edified. And I don't necessarily want them to turn around and hug me. Please stop that, pastors. We don't need to hug everybody. Just
sing to
service.
You. Oh, I had a church service sing to me, and I'm like,
No.
I'm going to throw myself out the window. The glass stained window is going to go.
Birthday song? Was it your birthday?
No, it's whatever welcoming song that they had. It was so cringy. It was not good.
Yeah. Oh, no.
I just visited a new church on Sunday, and if they would have sang to me, I would have left immediately. I would have been like, bye.
Yes. Oh, wow. I've visited churches, and every state that we go to, we get to, unfortunately sample the local churches. I've never yet been sung to. It's fun whenever they're like, here's a new mug for you because you're a visitor. That's fun. But please don't sing to people. Don't do that. That's the first thing on our list not to do. But with that, a lot of the times I'm going to churches full of strangers because we're moving. At the beginning, we were actually moving every 3 months. We never wanted to settle in one spot because we wanted to see as much of the country as we could. And then we started collecting stuff and dogs. So now we try to stay everywhere we can for at least 6 months. But it's intimidating to get up and go. But without that, at least that knowledge that there's that available, it is really easy to fall into sort of a bit of apathy towards the rest of your duties, because we're designed for this. Like you said, Patrick, this is something that's important. Kristin, are you seeing the same push on TikTok about not really needing, because this is what I've heard, and Patrick, I'd love to hear your opinion about this as well after Kristin. I've heard people say, we're the church. We don't really need to go to church. Mm-hmm. But then they're also saying the same things as you just read, Patrick, that they're depressed, they're not really excited, which is really not the goal for reading and praying, isn't so that you can get excited. There's nothing particularly exciting about reading some of the stuff in the Old Testament where people are being chopped into pieces and mailed to other people. that's not really where I get my kicks from. I'm not going to be super excited after that story, but that's not why we do it. So have you seen that, Kristin? Is that something you've seen over on TikTok?
Yeah, it's more than just TikTok. I see it everywhere too, Facebook and all sorts of places. But that's exactly what they say, that we are the church. I've gotten comments that say, like, it's unfortunate that you think that the church is a building and not the people. They equate church, the word, to a building. And yes, we meet in a building. Sometimes not. I mean, you could have home churches, you could have field churches, you could have all sorts of different places to meet. And we are the church. You're right, as the body of Christ. But it's kind of just bypassed. And from what I see, a lot of it is they don't like the correction. There's a lot of pride involved. They want to be right. They don't like to be challenged. So I'm seeing a lot of people who are making God in their own image. And then once the fundamentalists is what they'll call everybody, it's not just like it's all church folk, the fundamentalists who want to put the laws on them and all these things. They see it as so constricting. And so they have done away with the need to go to church at all, because they can have these encounters without, other believers gathered around them. So, and they're having encounters, but unfortunately, they're not biblical encounters.
Yes, that always creepy. Some of those encounters that we hear about. I don't want to hear any more nonsense about how Jesus is their boyfriend and them calling God Daddy God. Nope, stop that. Don't do that anymore. Don't call Dad. Don't tell God. No, not Daddy God. Patrick, what about you?
No, I think more people should do that so that we know the signal for how to stay away from those churches.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Can you guys, if you're like a really heretical church, could you just put that in like your sign?
Yeah, maybe some sort of flag that has like all the colors on it, and put that outside on your church. That'd be a great symbol. I would feel bad for if you're doing like a Noah's Ark theme and you're like, all right, hold on now.
Oh, that's true. Answers in Genesis, they're taking back the flag. So yes, that's true. That's a good point. We do have to be careful.
Yeah.
That.
One thing I notice is a lot of I consider you my church pastor. For one of the pastors that I work for, on YouTube and again, like, I mean, we're on YouTube and social media, and there's a great benefit for that, and there's a great benefit for hearing different voices speak to different people in different ways, and that's the amazing thing that we have these days. But and we'll get to it as we progress here, but if you're a genuine Christian and you're either not finding the right church because of all those, as Kristin was saying, either the terrible fundamentalist or they're not holy enough. That's one side that I see on a lot of things is I'm holier than thou, and these churches, they have people in them that aren't as serious about their faith as I am, and so they just remove themselves. And it's like, okay, then you have to agree with me that then you're not following the commands of Christ and the apostles and the early church to meet and join together in fellowship as often as you can, and not understanding the history of how precious that was in the early church, and understanding what that meant for Jewish believers that had, they were already behind enemy lines, and they're taking this, almost cult, idea in their families' minds and going to a different place at a different day and believing different things, and then being told like, oh no, just come back, you can do both. No, that's not the case, as we learned from Hebrews. And just that preciousness of the church, and realizing, guess what, you don't have to agree with everybody, and you don't have to always feel it, whatever that means. But there is a call through Scripture that's clear where we are to meet together, whether it be a building or in a public pool or where have you. Yes, we are the church, and the church building helps facilitate that. And yes, we probably could come up with a different name for church, but it's the way language works is we understand what we mean when we say church, but also that the building helps facilitate that. So but I yes, I've heard the same thing, and on the opposite end of the spectrum as well.
Wow, definitely not from Calvinists, right? Because we're all super duper gracious and nice. We don't ever say that other people aren't holy enough for us. That never happens. So I'm just assuming it's on. But it is important too to know, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later on, that one of the things that we do whenever we go to church is serve. And so as Christians, our service to one another is actually something that is an outpouring of the love that we have. And I don't think people realize that one of the reasons why they feel so depressed is because they feel like they're not doing anything that's helpful, whenever we're actually supposed to be helpful.
Yeah, because you're not.
For one another. Yes.
Do something. Sorry.
It doesn't matter if it feels good or not. You should be going and serving. And some of that service is actually just being an encouragement, because it must have been really encouraging as pastors came to their churches each week over the last couple of years, and there were so few people there, and they're losing congregants to sickness or whatever it is. I'm sure that was really, really discouraging. Why not take it upon yourself to make sure that you're there every Sunday, as even just as a way of encouraging your own self to get up? Because I know for me, I have to pump myself up just to go to Walmart. So I'm like, I've got to give myself all the reasons why. Don't just order the groceries this time. Actually go.
You're out of Oreos. You need more Oreos.
I have so many Oreos right now, you guys. I have a whole stash of Oreos. I'm not going to be. I'm sorry. Don't derail me, Patrick. Jeez. No,
I'll keep you on the right track.
Oh, derailed track. Sorry. It is something that I have to do. I have to remind myself quite a bit, like during the week, all day, every day. We tell ourselves the gospel over and over again. We work through these things, in our mind. And whenever it's coming up towards Sunday, one of the things that I can help myself with is, this is a person, this is a human being. My pastor is a person, and it's an encouragement to him whenever you are a consistent member each Sunday making your way to church, instead of just, popping in every now and then whenever you feel like it. That's discouraging, and we want to be encouraging, and we need to serve. There's no way to serve if you're not going. So there's lots of little details about that. But it's also possible that some of these folks are actually in a situation where they are in a church. They just aren't in a solid church. And that's a problem right now because of CRT. So we're seeing over the last year, churches and people who we thought, you guys were semi-solid. I probably wouldn't have recommended several of them, but they were supposed to be semi-solid, and they're just like flat out Francis Channing us. Only instead of going towards, calling Catholic priests their brothers, they're heading towards CRT. So there's a lot of people that have now found themselves, after having been solid members of churches for like decades or however much time, they're now seeing they can't remain in the specific churches. So how do they leave a church? What do you guys think is the best way to walk away from a church, if that's the case, if they have to, not for something silly like beards or decaf coffee? Don't do that.
I mean, we've talked about this in the past. There's a couple of ways. If you've been involved though for a long time, it's definitely worth it to bring it to the pastor's attention. Hey, like, I'm seeing this is not right, and bring biblical evidence of why it's not right. Kind of like what I had to do, and hopefully, prayerfully, they would accept that. But
Kristin, when you did that, I'm sorry, I was curious about this really quickly. When you did that, because this was all new to you, did somebody tell you that was the biblical way to go about it, or did you just say this is the right way? This is the way that I'm supposed to do it? How did you know? Because Patrick's right. That's one of the first things I thought about whenever you were first telling me that story while we were driving to see Justin Peters. And I had just stolen you away in my vehicle, and it was the first time you'd ever met me. And I was like, "Get in my van. We're going to see some cool stuff." And I was like, "I have candy," and you jumped in my car, and the candy was.
And she didn't have any candy. There was no, everybody knows.
There was no candy. It was Justin Peters, and Justin Peters couldn't even make it that day, so we ended up having to go again. But anyways, the first time you told me that story, I did think the same thing, Patrick. I was like, this lady here is telling me that she did this biblical thing. But I don't hear that beforehand you were actually like taught that this was a biblical thing, which is probably why they were so shocked by it. But how did you get to that point where you're like, you know what? I need to talk to them about this first?
Concerned. I was concerned. I had just been told the gospel, and my life had changed in a radical way, like just a radical transformation in my life. And I had so much concern, and I had so much love for these people because they were my family for so long, and I wanted them to know the truth just like I had been told the truth. And so I was like, I have to tell them. They're going to be so excited. If not excited, they're going to be like, oh, thank you. This is great. How come we never saw this? How come we never noticed this? That was my, that's why I wanted to do it. That's out of concern, out of love for them. Unfortunately,
having built that closeness, having understood that, this isn't just a social club, that these are people that you're coming together with and sharing this a deep impacting message in your life. You just don't get up and leave. Like it's like another family. It's something that you approach people with, and you're like, oh, hey, I'm trying to make sure that we're on the right path here as a family. I you probably didn't want to leave if you didn't have to, but obviously there are circumstances where like any non-marriage relationship, a divorce from that group or body or person might be the best thing to both continue in peaceful separate relations.
Now, if you're thinking though about the Catholic Church, that's totally different, Patrick. How do you translate that if you're a Roman Catholic that gets saved and you're looking around and you're like, oh, I'm so excited about this, and you want to reform your church without any sort of war and blood and stuff.
Yeah. Well, and luckily the Catholics have really not cut off too many heads lately, and actually, I think actually to their detriment, that might be the case. Uh, so obviously, I when I left, I was young and I had no biblical basis for it other than, oh wow, I read a book about this and I'm really convicted and I feel like I'm not Catholic anymore, and so me going to college was my separation from Catholicism. So I just I think it's still a good idea. So I kind of have like three ideas of why you would leave, and it's just you're leaving in good standing. You're leaving for doctrinal reasons. So you want to baptize your children. Your church won't let you, and so you do. Not that that's the right thing to do, but let's say that happens. And
Thank you for that caveat.
yeah, for a church in heresy. And so obviously we as good Calvinists understand that the Catholic Church adds to the doctrine of salvation, which we understand as attempting to add to the free gift of God. And Paul calls people like that Judaizers, and they are anathematized, even though ironically they anathematize us at the Council of Trent.
Council of Trent. Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things where it at least gives you the ability to talk with the priest and present the gospel. And there, I think again, you're. I think it's different for everybody. Obviously, I have a hard time feeling. I didn't feel like I lost anything by leaving the church. I knew people in the church. I even went to the private school that it was a part of, but I didn't feel a great big loss leaving. And obviously, you could still be Catholic and become saved and then get out of there. And I think it's just a good idea to always present those people who are in authority over you at the time and just letting them know. I let my parents know, and obviously, we still have disagreements about that, but it presents a set of closure. It girds your heart to see the people that you're leaving with love, in needing of the gospel, in needing of salvation, and that's true even if you're leaving a great church. They too are in need of love. They too are in need of the gospel. Just probably in good standing, you're probably leaving a church where they also agree with that. And not to say that Catholics wouldn't agree with that, but we obviously have a different idea of what the gospel is in that case.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad that you clarified that, because that was sort of, as Kristin was telling me, I was thinking about the difference in how these institutions are run is going to make a big difference. So Kristin going to this sort of non-denominational church that isn't like, tied down to a person in a different country, there would have been a possibility for repentance. Like if we look at just like as an example, John MacArthur, whenever he first started preaching at his church, he started out preaching through Matthew 18 and decided, he actually, as he was talking to the elders, they all got really upset and most of them left. They didn't even want to stay in church with him. So there's a point where sometimes churches can change. The Latter-day Saints, I guess, is another really great example of this. They were approached with the actual truth of the gospel enough times that the entirety of their church changed its views on the gospel. But then you have like the cults that are not necessarily going to let you go in a cheerful, happy way. They're going to be a lot more like Kristin's churches, and then of course the Roman Catholic Church, which is so organized around their levels of who's archbishop and all that stuff, where it would be even more of a battle to take it down, which is the printing press can't do it, then we might as well just keep going with the gospel the way that we're doing it now, because Martin Luther's 95 Theses, he's already done it. We don't really need to nail anything, but we can share the gospel. So I'm glad that you clarified that, just in case somebody's listening and they're confused and they're like, well, hey, I want to share the gospel because I did what Kristin did. I was really excited and I wanted to share the gospel with friends and family, and they were like, you're nuts. But it wasn't like a church where I could walk up to the church and be all like, hey guys, this cool thing happened. It was friends and family, and they were still like, you're nuts, stop talking to us. But everybody's, like Patrick said, everybody's experience with this is going to be slightly different. And so if you have addressed it, like Patrick said, you've gone to them with the issues, then you've already done the right thing. And out of love should be our goal. If you're going to your leaders without any sort of love in your heart for them, probably not a good idea to go full of pride. Not that Calvinists ever do that. We don't ever do that.
And I will make this caveat too, is that if you're being abused by a church or by somebody in the church, just leave.
Yep.
I'm not telling you to confront anybody. If you're being abused in some fashion, it's fine not to present them the gospel right offhand. Just leave and find a safe location, and then once you get plugged into a new church or a new safe area, then you can feel more at ease with going through the process of getting help that way too. And it's one thing that I suggest anybody do. Talking to people about abuse and stuff like that, suicidal tendencies. Please find help. Talk to somebody about something. You're not less spiritual when you have those issues or you're experiencing abuse. There are terrible people in this world, and like all terrible people, they find the path of least resistance. And unfortunately, the church makes it an easy path to put on a false faith until the true one comes out. So I just want to make that caveat. But you're absolutely right. Love. Start with love. In the middle with talking with love. End with love. As you're going out the door and they're yelling at you, be in love to them. When you go to the next church, be in love towards that past church and that past group of people. Understand that your new church is going to view you as, and they want you to come in. They want to love on you, and you showing grace and love, even if you didn't agree, even if you solidly didn't agree with the last people, your last church. If you're saying, like I left because of doctrinal reasons that I needed to, and but I still love them. I wish them the best. I presented the gospel before they left. Both sides are going to. There's no one that's going to be able to say bad about you.
Right.
The worst is, oh, he left, he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. They can say that. But if you leave in love and understanding and grace and patience and kindness and the works of the Holy Spirit, then they're lying about you.
Mm-hmm.
But and I mean, we especially if we're in severe disagreement and we are in the cage stage. We're no, this isn't a Reformed church, I'm leaving. We want to be passionate about those things.
Mm-hmm.
But again, balanced. That's what the Christian life is. It's one not about highs and lows and I'm right and no, you're wrong. It's let's figure this out together. We're in community, and unless if you're leaving a completely heretical church, you'd still be able to have fellowship with your past church. Mm-hmm. that you could go back into town or what have you and visit and say hi to everybody.
Yep, that's super important. What do you got, Kristin? I can tell you want to say something.
Yeah. I mean, it's super important, like you're saying, to just season everything with love and grace. That's something that I tried to do really hard and tried to keep in mind. And also knowing that it's okay if they do start to talk about you. It's okay if they are lying about you. It's okay if they are calling churches and telling everybody you're a heretic. It's okay.
I was just going to say, but aren't you a heretic? Because somebody called me. It was very scary. They called me. They were like, your friend Kristin is a heretic. And then they hung up. It was terrifying. I don't know if that has.
Oh, you should definitely believe that person. Definitely. Thank you, stranger. You saved us.
I'm so thankful.
I knew when she had two-tone hair, there was something off about her, but
somebody told me I had the Jezebel spirit because I dyed my hair once. I was like,
wow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for noticing.
That's what it was, Patrick.
Was it Patrick? Huh. Sounds like something Patrick would say.
It was me. I was the black collar.
That's what I thought. I knew it.
Oh,
I did want to. I wanted to point this out really quickly because I have another question, but I'm just gonna keep on adding the questions to my brain for you guys.
And can I ask a question after you?
No, absolutely not. But you can ask a question before me because I'm gracious.
Kristin, when you left and you had kind of all that hate thrust upon you, were you able to go to anybody and get support for that? And if not, what do you think that somebody who is on the receiving end of a person, what can we show that person that's leaving a church that's kind of like that?
That's a good question.
We immediately tried to find a different church to attend. And honestly, the only person I had at the time was my husband. So because we didn't find a church and land in a different church quickly, there was a lot of pain and a lot of healing that was going on at the same time as trying to find a place. So it was really difficult. My husband was the one that I had to lean on and depend on because as much hate as they were hurling at me, they were also hurling it at him. He was getting a lot of the backlash of it too. And he's a lot more. He can handle it a lot better than I can. I'm a female, and I'm just a little bit more emotional about it. These are my family members. He wasn't as involved, yada yada. But it's hard. It's really hard to deal with people that you loved, that you cared for, all of a sudden turning their back on you, and now they're name calling, they're spreading rumors, they're discrediting your story, they're discrediting what you're saying. And honest, like if I'm being honest, I there was just a lot of crying. There's a lot of crying. There was a lot of heartbreak over what was happening. There was a lot of reading scripture. There was a lot of watching sound brothers and sisters on YouTube, because that's what I had at the moment, podcasts, sermons from trusted pastors. There was a lot of that was just strengthening my own faith, and weeping over what I had lost, being able to grieve that. It was grieving. I was grieving a family that I had just lost and that now hated me. When I finally landed in a different church, I had to confide all of this to my pastor. I had to go to him and I had to say, look, this is everything this is all my junk, and just like laid it out there on the table, and do what you suggested before, be gracious, be loving towards my last church. As much as they had hurt me, as much as I wanted to, my flesh wanted to bash them. I wanted to be mad at them. I wanted to say all the nasty, negative things that my brain comes up with when you're thinking about these things. They're hard. They're really hard to deal with. And I had to despair it all and lay it all out there, so that he could help me process. And he did. He did a wonderful job.
Were there other people who had gone through something similar? In Patrick, have you seen a program that works for this, where because there are a lot of people who are hurt by churches. Kristin and I have had, well, mostly Kristin, because everybody knows that you can't get hold of me via any way whatsoever for at least 2 weeks after you've sent me messages. It takes me that long. But people have sent all of this, all of their stories, and they've told us all their hurt and stuff. And unfortunately, it is actually a situation where, like Patrick, the person is emailing you, they do tend to say, I'm afraid to go to a new church. I don't know if you guys saw this, Patrick. If you saw it, it's probably really offensive to you. But there was somebody who left a comment stating that all Christian men were basically going to abuse women. All Christian men viewed women in a abusive way, and it was really hurtful to see somebody say something like that whenever there's so many brothers in Christ that I know that are respectable, and so that's sort of the idea that people have whenever they're hurt. Like you mentioned, if you're being abused, just leave. Nobody's telling you to stay and help. Mm-hmm. Also, call the police if somebody is breaking the law. We, as Christians, it is okay for you to call the police. Don't think that you have to Matthew 18 illegal activity. You can actually have those people put in jail. That's totally fine. But we do tend to have a lack of organization around helping people get through these kind of things, and that's sort of a deterrent. Also, if you've been in a place like Kristin, where you've been love bombed, and then you go to the new church and they're really loving, for me, makes me really uncomfortable, because it's like, flashbacks. And I'm like, no, please don't love me. Please don't love me. Because I don't want you to stop loving me as soon as I stop doing what you want me to do. But we do need a little bit more organization. So have either of you guys seen that, or seen something that you think would work with that?
I haven't seen any kind of like programs or any books, really. Honestly, for me, what was the best thing that helped me was actually sitting underneath exegetical preaching and having scripture preached to me every Sunday.
And being stolen by a random podcaster.
And being stolen by a random podcaster.
In love.
Being able to find it. I could find what they were teaching in the Bible.
Yes, yeah.
I was like, whoa. Like I didn't have to what do you, like the hoops they jump through to come to the conclusions that these people can come to in these hugely heretical churches. I didn't have to jump through any hoops. I could hear what the pastor was saying. I could look at my Bible. I could read it, and I could say, yep, okay, here it is right here, laid out perfectly. That helped me a lot. But as far as programs, as far as books go, I would be interested if Patrick knew of any, because that would be a great resource to provide for people.
Mansplain it to us, Patrick.
Yes.
Well, I don't want to be flippant or not sympathetic to people's ideas. So I'm going to couch it by saying this, that I understand the hesitation to not want to go headfirst into a new church. And so hopefully the podcast that we're doing here for the episodes can help kind of strengthen of what to look for, what to double check. If you can, talk to friends and family who you know are sound, or if there's a a pastor that you like, that that you watch and does all the thing that Kristin says with exegetical preaching, has a heart for the lost, has a heart for ministry. Those are usually they're members of churches that then you can find their website, and they usually have like church locators on there. So you can, if you like John MacArthur but you're in Maine, that's kind of a little bit hard to do, to go to Grace Church every day.
Nobody
But
wants to move to California, so
right. Yeah. Um, so so I understand the hesitation. But if let me assume that you are going to a new church and you're doing what Kristin did, which is lay it out on the table. I'm not discounting that had to be a super hard thing. You have to not only tell what actually happened, but also you're having to defend yourself, and not really defend yourself. You're having to tell the lies about you that they're probably hearing as well. And you don't know. I mean, this person is a stranger to you that you're just now meeting. But the pastor and the elders, both. It doesn't just have to be the head pastor that you have to meet.
Right.
If they're bringing in elders, or some churches have counselors, like my church does, that's a good sign. And people that want to hear your story, people that want to love on you, people that want to help you. And this is true for a lot of the questions that I get sent to me is, are you a member of a Bible believing church? Have you talked to your pastors and elder about this? Talking to me as a stranger, and it's even worse than a stranger, because you're emailing who you think is the pastor that is part of this semi small organization but is a full-time missionary, and I'm the one that you're unfortunately having to field emails from. I feel bad for people for that, to get the old switcheroo. But your pastor is the one who wants to help you. I'm not saying that the pastor doesn't do anything, but there are pastors that I think legitimately say, like, oh, I wish that couple that was looking, that's now seeking divorce, I wish they would have come first and we could figure it out together. Or there are counselors or pastors, or there's programs. And one that a book that I really like is Counseling the Hard Cases by Stuart Scott. I say that book just to say, Stuart Scott's a member of the Association of Certified Biblical Counselors, which my church, my church has I think he's full-time, a full-time counselor on to help assist pastors with kind of longer term counseling. And so you don't need to go to church to find a counselor for that, but you can go through someone like that I would say, if you're looking for a stranger, because sometimes it is easier to talk to a stranger, but you want to have a biblical foundation for the counseling, not just everything's your mother's fault, but you also want to have sex with your mother, as we
this went to a
learn.
Dark situation here.
Yeah, well,
this is what happens when you bring on a philosophy. Never mind, I can't say the word. This just so anybody that's listening that hears ACBC and isn't sure about that particular group. That would be something that Susan Heck promotes. The ladies from the Women's Hope podcast, both of them are actually counselors with ACBC. So no, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, though, because it is important that we know if you've been hurt by a pastor, if you've been hurt by elders or by church members, it might actually be really difficult for you to trust that person. And nobody is telling you to go to a brand new church and automatically trust everybody there. But there are these resources. There is ABCB. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. But there is those other options for you, and they do have websites and stuff, which we will link to in the description down below in case you want to check that out. But if you are like Kristin and Patrick, I'd be interested to hear if you had the same situation, because everybody talks about being cage changers and stuff. But I had a really weird experience whenever I was a new believer, where there was sort of that euphoria about having a family, a body of believers, and especially during the time whenever a lot of people that I loved and cared about were like, please stop talking to me, you psycho. And I just wanted to jump in with like all of my being and be a part of this church in a naive way, where I wasn't actually paying attention to the signs. And that, of course, that church apostatized later on down the road. But if I had been paying attention to signs and hadn't been so naive, I probably would have been able to stop and say, hey, you guys, this is doctrinally probably not a good idea. We should probably stop and think about this. But I was so excited about everything at first. And then there was that moment of being jaded, being like, wow, believers aren't perfect. I mean, I know I wasn't perfect, but I'm the chiefest of all sinners. So you mean that you guys aren't perfect either? That was like, it was a wake up call for me. I was really disturbed by that. Did you guys, am I just weird, or did y'all have that same experience?
I didn't want anything to do with anybody. I wanted to go to church. I wanted to sit down and listen to the sermon. The only reason why I decided to talk to my pastor is because I knew that I was being labeled the way that I was being labeled. And I wanted to have the opportunity to tell my story, and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I come from. This is what happened. Take me or leave me. I'll leave if you want me to, kind of stuff. But I didn't want to get involved. And I was really uncomfortable too, because there's a lot of elder women that go to our church, and like they wanted to like hug me and like love on me and like do all like the nice things. And I was like, stay away from me. Like, I don't want any of it. It takes a long time. It takes a really long time, especially if you've been hurt. If you're just leaving because you're like, it's like doctrine is not lining up, or you're leaving because, I don't know, worship isn't what you want. I don't know. There's a lot of different reasons I guess you could leave for things that aren't so personal. So
saying reckless love, then you have to go. Yep.
Yeah, if you're leaving for like softer reasons, I guess they're not soft reasons. What would you even call them? Not emotional reasons.
I'm gonna let you just dig that grave so that all the emails come to you. What would you call it, Kristin? Are you gonna call it a softer reason?
If you're a weak person.
Yeah, that's right. You weak person. Sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of like a relationship, though, right? Like you almost don't want that rebound church relationship. You want something lasting and longevity there. Yeah,
that makes sense. That's a good way to put it. Still don't call it Daddy God, though.
Or please do, and do it for the church where you're inviting new church members, and it'll help.
It will help a lot. Yes.
Oh, thanks. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go eat some donuts and skedaddle.
I love it whenever churches have donuts. Oh man, that's my favorite.
Reminds me so much of Catholic Church.
Do they have donuts at Catholic churches?
Mm-hmm.
Do they do that? Really?
Yep.
I did not know that.
Catholic Church is a non-denominational, I guess, because we had the donuts too.
They have it in common.
So I don't want to sound too mean, but I guess we're okay with being a little bit more mean to ARC. A lot of times, cults, especially when they're first getting a hold of you, will use sugar as a way to, I forget what the chemical that it does, but it lowers your inhibitions there. So usually if you see that at pledge parties and stuff, they'll have like, not the special brownies, but just, normal brownies that are loaded with sugar or lots of candy or stuff like that. It's to inhibit your thinking processes a bit more.
I wonder how much sugar is in pineapple. I bet there's a lot of sugar in pineapple.
There is.
That's a great point, Lauren.
I was way more cautious after that whole thing happened, but it did take that to happen before I was cautious, because I really did. Even though you would think, because I came out of the Word of Faith movement, but I just thought, well, that's the Word of Faith movement. Those folks, of course, they're gonna do these things wrong, but a solid church isn't gonna do anything wrong, right? Like, because they've got a really great statement of faith. So because they've got a really great statement of faith, it should be fine. And it just didn't even occur to me that we're actually, it's very loving to guard one another as you're going to church. This is another great point for why church is important. Why, if you are a born again believer, especially the folks that are all like, I'm so holy. If you're so holy, stay where you're at. If there's no heretical issues and nothing like super doctrinally wrong, stay where you're at and help make sure that unholy things aren't happening, because that's a important thing. And I just wasn't even paying attention to that. Patrick, did you have any moments where you were just like, I love everybody? I'm just kidding. I already know your answer's going to be no to that.
I take the James Dean approach, which is to sit in the back of the church, hope people really like my dark and moody look, and go, I need to talk to them. And after about 8 months, you realize no one's ever going to talk to you.
Black Row Baptist, got it.
Yeah. Well, and I would say, to add to your point, just on a little bit on the other end of the spectrum, is that's great to have that type of love. Again, to draw a little bit of parallel between new relationships. I told my wife that I loved her within like 2 months, and it was like, this is too early to tell people. Like I have set standards that I have to hit those beats, and if it's 1 month earlier, I'm doing something wrong. It's just like a check on me, because I was fending them off left and right.
Naturally,
in my mind,
the James Dean stuff. Dean
right,
stuff.
yeah,
right.
Yeah, I'm so
attracting
so
them
deep over here
with the philosophy and the cool shirts.
That's what chicks dig. That's what I found out.
And the sinful pineapple pizza, which always makes people feel like they're living on the edge.
My Jezebel introduced me to it. I'd never even thought pepperoni, nothing else. So.
Wow. Did you just call your wife your Jezebel?
Yeah, in a good way.
Did she's like the sweetest. Laura is.
Yeah,
in like a good way.
Because she's made of sugar, so
Oh, she's the drug that the church was using to get you in there. No, sorry.
But it's what we see in the Church of Ephesus in Revelation 2, where they lost their first love. It says, "I know you've endured patience, bearing up for my name's sake, and have not grown weary. But I have this against you, that you have abandoned the love that you had first." And obviously, what he's talking about there is also with respect to the gospel as well. But from the gospel, from that love, from that understanding of who God is, what Christ did, what the Holy Spirit is doing in us. Don't take the James Dean approach. First of all, it doesn't work. It only happens in movies, and you have to look like Heath Ledger or pick your moody person that can do it for you. It's not going to work.
A picture of the Joker up right there.
I mean, I'd talk to that guy.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but derailed and things love and love and love. I don't know where I was going. Sorry, I left it.
I'm sorry. I'll stop interrupting and I'll wait till the end of things and then make the jokes about jokers and stuff. Okay, Humblebees, that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this discussion. I know I did. We are going to split this up into a 2-week. We're splitting this up into 2 parts, maybe 3, most likely just 2. So we are finishing off here, but we're cutting it in half. You can watch the rest of it next week. Also, you can catch me on Friday on the Friday Mega Live list. Hopefully 7:30 Central Standard Time is whenever I try to do that. That's over on the YouTube page. So do check that out. And also look out for part 2 next week. And I'll see you guys later. Love you, Humblebees. Bye.
Thanks for listening, Humblebees. This is Tulips and Honey. Over now.
I think that diamond still needs a little more polish.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been recording this whole time, so I've got some really great, bloopers already. Probably some really great stuff to like blackmail you guys with later too.
Don't most people skip over the introduction anyways? Like I usually hit the skip forward at least twice for anybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody does that for my show.
And for Kristin's TikTok, it just gets me to the end, so I'm already there.
You know what? You should listen. You should listen. It might humble you a little bit.
Oh no. What is employee of the month? It's been a long time since I
I
actually
don't know. It's just awful. They sing to you. I would rather face a firing squad because at least I'm out of it at the end of it.
I'm going fossil hunting, but it's not really set in stone.
Nice.
That took me a second.
Now I'm warmed up. Maybe my minutes don't kick in a minute. I don't know. You guys can hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'll edit that out. It's okay. Don't worry about
That's
it. You
all right.
lied. We caught you in your lies. That's what I expect from pineapple pizza eaters. Because I was like, you know what? I don't feel like editing anymore. So.
Oh, I know that.